To advance your career in education, especially when you're thinking about moving from being a teacher to a teacher leader, maybe running a department, teams in your school, maybe you want to be a dean, or you're like, you know what? I know I want to be an administrator, assistant principal, vice principal. Do I dare say it? Principal? Or maybe even beyond that, superintendent, deputy superintendent. The one thing that's a common factor in getting to that place is your willingness to commit time to work. And I know it sounds weird, right? Committing time to work. But what I mean by that is committing time to the work. And the work that I'm talking about is the work of what you're doing right now. So whether you're a teacher and first year teacher, early career teacher, mid-career, or veteran, and you're saying, I want to aspire to greater heights, you have to be willing to commit a serious amount of time to what you're doing. I know it's not a popular thing to say because people talk about work-life balance and making sure that, hey, you don't get paid beyond a certain period of time in the day. So just, when you've done your day, go home. And yes, I think I agree with that. If that's what you believe, that, if your day is from 8 o'clock till 2:30, at 2:30, if your commitment is up, you should, go home. And if that's what you want to do. But the question I'm often asked, like I said earlier, is how do I advance my career? I want to move into leadership. I want to have more responsibility. The issue with that is this. The more responsibilities you gain, the less time that you have to do. There's less time that you have to actually get the job done. So if you're saying, listen, my 6.5-hour day is all I want to work, but now you want more responsibility, guess what? If you're teaching a full load and then you're running departments and you're doing other things, then guess what happens? You have to commit time outside of your regular day to actually, engage in those things, to really expand yourself. And it's just part of the reality of moving up in leadership. I've met people who say like, nope, it doesn't have to be that way. And maybe you're right. Maybe you figured out how to make it work without you having to do anything more than what you're already doing. But I can tell you this, after 17 years as a teacher, a dean, running several departments, math, science, special education, and then not only that, becoming an assistant principal and a principal. Each time I've gone up, the more and more of a time constraint has happened. And the thing that I had to learn to do was to be better able to manage my time and also accept the fact that when you are in leadership, sometimes that phone will ring at 11 o'clock at night. That phone will ring at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I've had it happen. I've had my phone ring and I look at it, I'm like, wait a minute, why is the superintendent calling me? It's 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night. And I pick up that phone because I need to know what's going on here, or I get a text message. And they say, hey, one of your students is missing. They didn't make it home. And I'm thinking to myself, I think to myself as a parent, what would I be going through if I couldn't find my child? And then they're asking me the question, hey, do you know any other kids that might be friends with this kid? At 11 o'clock at night, guess what I'm doing now? I'm calling my assistant principals. I'm calling my teachers. I'm saying, please, I'm so sorry to disturb you, but we're trying to find out, do you know who is really close to this kid? And especially if it's a kid that I might not necessarily have the answer immediately, then guess what happens now? You're on the phone at 11 o'clock. Then it's midnight. It's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then all of a sudden the kid is found. You're like, thank God, But look at the time commitment that required. And if you're one who's thinking to yourself, like, I don't want to go anything above and beyond my regular work day, then leadership's not for you. It's not, because there's literally, I can tell you this, in my career, I just don't see how that's possible. Even those who are really great at managing their time understand there's an expectation that at any given time, anything can happen that requires you to shift your attention to the work, But those are extreme situations. So let's talk about the typical day for a teacher. If you're teaching a full load, and you want to move up, and you've been teaching a full regular load, right? In New York City, it's 5 periods a day. That you have your prep and you have your lunch, right? If this is what you're doing, then you're asking the question, like, how do I advance my career. The one thing I will tell you is this: every time I've interviewed people for roles, whether they're teacher leaders or they're to be my dean or be my assistant principal, I'm always asking myself, does this person have the capacity to manage their time, and also to prioritize what's important in the role? And often I come across people who love the idea. They love the idea of becoming, this more advanced role until they're in it, and they're like almost in tears. Like, this is so overwhelming. This is so much. And I look at them and I empathize with them because I know it is overwhelming. I've been there. I've been in that role. But also I recognize that is what I had to go through to really build my capacity to be able to lead, and move up in my career. Commitment to the work. Commitment of time to work is something that's necessary, and you have to recognize. So remember this: you want to advance your career in education. You want to be a dean. You want to be any of these roles, principal one day. Just know that just like an entrepreneur who's starting a business, and I'm pretty sure Jeff Bezos or whoever else out there, when the first time they had this idea of their business or their company, in the beginning they probably spent a lot of time, 80-hour work weeks, just building, establishing reputation, honing that product, honing their craft, and from there in time it became something big. And that's what I did, in my career. I came in as a teacher in 2005, and then soon after that, I was made the dean. So I was teaching full time. I was teaching full time. I was also the dean. So my preps and my lunches were committed to, supporting school culture in the building. And I was in the building at 6:30 in the morning, sometimes 6 o'clock in the morning. School didn't start till like 8:15. And then I was in the building until way after the end of the school day. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, I was still there. Paperwork and supporting, I'm calling parents, running a club, doing different things. And all these things allowed me to build up my capacity as a potential leader. And so when the time came for me to become an assistant principal, and people might say, listen, people will tell you when you become an administrator, oh, you're lucky, you're getting paid all this money. Yeah, when I became an assistant principal, my income jumped from, I think I was like around in the 70s, and all of a sudden I was at 120, in the 120s. Yeah, $50,000 increase, right? But guess what? I was that much more busier. I assumed that much more on my plate, and it's just the reality of it, and you would think as a principal now, you have assistant principals and everything else, but guess what? No, it's still intense. But now I'm answering to superintendents and central office and all these different spaces, and every parent is obligated. I'm obligated to be there for every single parent. But there's only one of me. So when a parent says you're my child's principal, that means 600 kids. I'm your child's principal, your child's principal, your child's principal. So when a parent calls me, I can't avoid that. I have to engage. As a teacher, when a parent called me, okay, my 5, maybe I had about 100 something kids from each of my periods, 25, 30 kids per period, But now as a principal, everyone. But not only that, all the teachers, I'm their principal. Every staff member in the building, support staff, the bus driver, I'm the principal. If there's an issue, they come to me. And guess what happens? Everybody has my phone number. If there's an issue, they come to me. Because again, that's the responsibility I've taken. So if you want to be a leader, in education, whether, whatever it is, just know that the higher up you go, the more of a time commitment you're going to have to make. It's just the reality of it, But however, be smart about it. Know what your limits are. Know what your capacity is. And I'm going to say this one last thing before I jump off. Not everybody's meant to be in that space as a leader. Not everybody's meant to be able to commit that level of time that's required to develop yourself and to really, be in charge. That's what it comes down to, because everything falls down on your shoulders when you're a leader. And I'll tell you this: I don't regret any of the 17 years that I was in that position. It's just that people ask me, so how come you're still not doing it? because I was also able to recognize that it was time for me to step aside and let somebody step into leadership. So that's one thing I believe every great leader should. I'm not saying I'm a great leader, but I think every great leader should know when to step aside so the new generation of leaders can step in and lead. So now I'm here to support those of you who are looking to go into leadership with some of my anecdotals and some of my experiences, and hopefully it helps you. So if any of this is helpful to you and it's making an impact on your thinking, please like, share, subscribe, and invite your friends to watch these videos and join me on my podcast. And yeah, thanks so much for your time. Be well. And remember, to be a leader, you have to be willing to commit time to work. All right? Be well. Peace.